Okay, this is the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council special meeting between Budget and Finance and Outreach Committee regarding the budget. So right now I'll do roll call. So out of Budget and Finance, Vic,
Here.
John,
Here.
Melanie, Outreach is John,
Here.
Chris,
Here.
and Kane.
Here.
Okay, there we go. And anybody in the other? Nope, just us 5 so far. Okay, so first we're going to start off with any public comment at all. I'll start off just to say what I was saying before we started the meeting. This is going to be really interesting with the budget, and that Tracy Parks, her motion to increase our NC funds has been like tossed. It's done. The mayor is not considering increasing neighborhood council's funds at this time. We get the 25 and be happy that we're getting it. And so, yeah. So that's where we're at, is just the 25,000. And so with that being said, discussion about the budget. So our original budget looks like this, and just to remind everybody what it looks like. So we have the mailroom, which is increasing their fees to 412, which the 5,000 here is still going to cover it, because I always buffer a little tiny bit for extras, fees that might come along throughout the year. We have at work services, we have audio, food for meetings, web hosting fee, which that was going to go up to almost $400, but Christina's going to level us down on what we get, so it will bring it under 300. I talked to her about that. The Canva, the Zoom, retreat 750, business and office supplies. And then these are, because they don't use credit cards, I always budget for June for the last payments for June in here. So it's not in this figure for June for the fees for audio and minutes, because they do not go into, they don't use credit cards for either of them, and you can't cut a check, and you can't pay for services rendered before they're rendered with the city clerk. So out the gate, we have operational expenses, $16,225. And then what we've done here is Candy Cane Lane Crafts Holiday Parade is the only outreach events that we budgeted for so far. And then unallocated funds, no MPGs, no community improvement projects, and then our 25,000. So there's where we're at. So then we come, the next part of it is where we're at on the budget with our spending right now. So right now in unallocated funds, can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay. So right now in unallocated funds, we have $6,075. Out of all of this. So let's go back to the agenda. So what I've done here, go back here, this is what basically breakdown of concerns. So 25,000 in the annual budget. Basic operational fees are 16,225. Right now in unallocated, there's $6,075. No newsletter is budgeted this time, but a newsletter cost is at approximately $4,600 to print and mail due to the postage increases. If we don't do a newsletter before rollover money is released, then it will bring unallocated money. If we do a newsletter, we'll have $1,475 left for the rest of the year. Okay. And so the rollover amount is supposed to be $8,593.94.
Mhm.
But I'm going to put that asterisk there. With what the mayor did with the 25,000 and all, and what has happened, I'm hesitant to even put the $8,593.94 even budgeting for that right now until we get a letter identifying our unallocated money, or our rollover money. The city clerk issues a letter saying that you have this amount, and until we receive that and say that we've got it and we're going to get it, I don't want us to bank on it and make you know what I'm saying, count on that money 100% until for sure we've seen that letter. Because they're playing some games right now at city council and the mayor. And I just hope that they don't shaft the neighborhood councils on getting their rollover money.
I thought the rollover part had already been approved up through the top.
They've said that they're supposed to get it, but until we see that letter, Vic, it's not official.
Okay.
Until we have that letter that city clerk sends out that this is your amount of money that we've identified as rollover money for you. And that won't come probably until August or September. Kane?
And I think you're okay. Going back to the newsletter, where did you get the 1475 remaining?
What do you mean?
Because
if you take 4,600 off of 6,000,
6,075.
6,075, and take 4,600 out of that for the newsletter, that's what's left of the unallocated funds for the rest of the year out of the $25,000.
Where? Okay.
If we were only to have $25,000, that's what would be left for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and that seems like pretty much a non-starter. Like that's just not,
because I'm getting.
Because the newsletter is going to be about $4,600 with the postal increase. It was 4,000 last time around, and it's 4,600 with the postal increase and all now.
Okay, I'm trying to adjust my spreadsheet in real time, and I see where I got my discrepancy from. So no problem.
Yeah. So it kind of makes me go, oh boy, what do we do? Because Ray's real adamant about trying to do this newsletter, and this is having honest conversation with everybody. He's adamant about doing this newsletter, but do we do it and leave this amount of money?
I wouldn't vote for that.
I would.
I have a question. My question is when would the expenditure for the newsletter be?
Well, that's when outreach would decide when they're doing the newsletter. And there's actually there's who's got their hand up? Oh, Vic's got his hand up. I'm like, where's the other hand? That's where we're going to get into some other options here in a few minutes. But what we've got here is the newsletter's up to the outreach to decide when they want to do it. And so I think the plan originally was for the holidays to do it, but
we did not have any plan or timeline specifically for an issue. We were discussing honestly if, not when, and then yeah. So I mean, and as it stands here, it doesn't seem like it's worth even exploring. Like you can't cripple the entire budget for this one thing.
Right. So do we? So then there's other options that we can discuss going forward here. So let me go over here. So now we're at Now we're at options and trade-offs, and that's where I want to hand it over to Vic because he's got a little presentation and we can do different types of trade-offs here as I've got, there's different things that we can do. We can hold off the newsletter until the first of the year and see how much money we get in rollover. If we get the rollover money and then do it after, budget it for it after the rollover money comes through. Or Vic's got his trade-offs things that I'm going to hand over to him now. So I'll stop share here so you can do it.
Okay. What I did is I took the budget that Melanie did. I grayed out these columns here because for purposes of this discussion, it's really irrelevant. I created some additional columns here for minimum needs, whether, based on meeting format. So the first column is if we were to do 100% virtual, or if we do virtual, these are the things we would need. If we do in person, these are the things we would need. So like for audio services, if we went virtual, we wouldn't need them. So it was all on the in-person side. For the virtual office, that doesn't change. So that would go regardless of how we do the meeting. The earlier discussion, or the Zoom license, the reason I had the question about the remainder if we do the newsletter is because for in person, if we were to do 100% Zoom, we don't need the Zoom license for 100% in person. But because we've already started with some in person, some on Zoom, I added that on there. So the ones that are green are the ones that, in my opinion, and we all can decide if everybody agrees with this, are the minimum needs by the type of meeting format. So like the business office paper supplies for mailroom, that's to do agenda packets and things like that. We wouldn't need that for Zoom meetings. The food for meetings, we wouldn't need that for Zoom meetings. So that's why those are 0 and white over here. I just added this one for the
retreat Ray will never do on Zoom. I'll tell you that right now. He will never do it.
Look, forget who will do what and who doesn't like what. We are looking at trade-offs. This is called brainstorming. You talk about things regardless of how ridiculous you might think they are.
All right.
Then we figure out the feasibility of it later.
Okay, let's cut to the chase, because not all of this was I guess my first question would be, in terms of infrastructure, the technology, is it technically possible for us to do virtual meetings with the resources we have, like at Tech Park, and like, what do we need to buy essentially?
Okay, well, that's hybrid.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that
Right.
is
I guess that's
coming
right.
up. If we were to go all virtual meetings, yes, we have the tech.
Okay.
Because we wouldn't be at Peck Park, we wouldn't be at the city hall, we would be completely virtual. So that we can do. We can also do entirely in person.
Gotcha.
This hybrid, this line 17 hybrid equipment will come in. I'll bring that up when I talk about the newsletter. But so far, unless somebody has a problem with how I've broken this out of what the minimum needs are, if we go down to the bottom here, we get the 1475 that Melanie was talking about, because over here I added the 4600 for the newsletter just so we could do the calculations and see what they are. And I have that on both sides because regardless of whether we go virtual or not, we would still do the newsletter, assuming we choose to do it.
Right.
So one regarding the newsletter in particular, what I was thinking of is if we're going to do it, we should wait and do it the next fiscal year because that's the election, and not do it this fiscal year when we don't have an election, depending on how much and whether we get the rollover money.
Right. And so
if we were to do something like that, then, or if we were to wait, we could also, instead of doing that, and I'm going to delete it here just for the purposes of showing the calculations, we could instead use the money for the hybrid equipment that we were talking about. And what I did is, this is the spreadsheet we used at the previous meeting where we were at the end of the fiscal year in June, I think it was, where we were figuring out what to do with the rollover money if we weren't going to get it. That's what this is here. So if we were to instead put that money toward doing a one-time purchase, essentially, of the hybrid equipment, we still are short with the 25, but if we have more of the board meetings be virtual, like say, 50%, alternate, 1 month in person, 1 month virtual, then we do this type of thing where it's half and half. And that's just, oh, wait a minute. Did I pick the wrong line? We go 50% virtual, 50% in person, and then we've already made up the shortfall to get the hybrid equipment. And then we can use the hybrid equipment for future meetings and go both ways at the same time or something like that. So that is one idea. And even if we don't get the hybrid equipment, we could still do the trade-offs, like the half and half virtual and in person, to leave more money, because that would leave 11,850. Well, no, sorry. It would leave more money. We'd have to change a few more things to the 50-50 to get the true numbers, for like NPGs or whatever else. And also keep in mind that this is showing not only the candy cane lane, but the other things that weren't on the budget that Melanie had, the overall budget that Melanie had. It was the monthly budget that had the parade and emergency prep, town hall, and stuff like that. So those are the types of trade-offs that we're going to need to look at to figure out how much we're going to have left over and what we want to do with it.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, so what we're going to do is kind of open up a discussion, but Vic, I want to share something real quick. Okay.
I'm gonna return this back to the baseline that we were starting with.
Okay.
And then we can.
I'm going to reopen.
And we can go back to it if we need to, and
yeah.
Like what if we do this and what if we do that and stuff like that.
Right. So where we're at right now is what we could do. So what Chris, I know what you were going to say is that what we use the newsletter for is not just elections. Usually in an election year, we do 2 newsletters sometimes, and sometimes 1. But after talking to Ray, and I'm just speaking after a conversation with Ray last night, the newsletter is used for outreach. A lot of people look forward to the newsletter, receiving it for outreach purposes and knowing what's going on, and they enjoy reading it and getting it in their mail. That's one of the pluses that he sees from it. And so he wanted to give his input on the newsletter and the aspects of it. Also, his aspects were, what he wanted me to relay to me is that meeting in person, he finds that we're engaging our stakeholders more than we are in Zoom. A lot of people feel it's impersonal when they come to Zoom meetings for our meetings, and that more, so that's his aspect on that. With the Zoom portion of it, we have food and audio is 5,900 is how much it is. Right now, the retreat is locked in for in person because he's already reserved it and everything for the 13th with LAPD. He's already got Gary to come and all of that. So that's locked in for in person. So our regular meetings are food and audio 5,900 is what we spend. So getting rid of that would add 5,900 back into the budget. If we cut it in half and do 6 months on Zoom, it would put 2,950 back into the budget. We still need to have the office allocation, because that's where name tags and all that come from, and business cards, etc. So we still need all those things, whether we're virtual or not. And I've been asked to look into getting lanyards for everybody instead of name tags. So I'm looking at quotes for that. So that's where that money will be used for. That's why it's allocated. So basically it comes up morale versus stakeholders. How do we see, is this worth the loss? What do we gain with extra money to be in person versus being virtual? Is the money worth the engagement of stakeholders? How do we balance this? And so, Chris, you had your hand up. I'm going to go with you first here.
Yeah, well, just real brief. I mean, I think what we should do is, in a condensed as possible, bring this to the full board and kind of lay it out for them, because what we're talking about ultimately is sort of I mean, this is a crisis, right? It's a budget crisis, but it's going to force not necessarily a permanent, but like a significant shift in what we do. So just to crystallize what comes out of youth and outreach, we're not talking, from my standpoint anyway, we don't automatically or necessarily publish the Advocate. Not just because that would be an awful, I think, use of resources.
Right.
If there's something worth publishing, and it's not impossible to find that, but when we had a much larger budget and more people were working on it, it was more of an expectation. I take Ray's point about its value to some people, but I think right now, especially when we don't even have the rollover guaranteed,
Right.
the sort of assumption that we're going to publish Advocate at $4,600 is just out the window. I wouldn't vote for it in committee or at the board. What we have explored is the possibility of the same type of public print publication via San Pedro Today. And I was thinking, I guess it must be their salesperson, whoever manages the ad stuff. She quoted 12, I believe it was 1250 for a full page, and she said that they would negotiate with us essentially over a double page, which would take to mean maybe $2,000. Which is, I think, what I would be willing to spend for 2 pages. And so if we wanted to kind of, and I wouldn't say split it up the middle, but if we agreed at the board level that there was a need, I mean, honestly, we'd have to agree at the committee level as well. But if we wanted to do a print publication that went, in this case, to actually more people than we get the Advocate,
Yeah.
we could allocate somewhere between $1,250 and $2,000 to put something in San Pedro Today, and also then include links or whatever that direct the readers to social media and to websites where we can flesh out some of the stuff that we refer to. To me, that seems like if enough people have kind of a bee in their bonnet about print media, I think that's the way to do it, because we just cut them one check, we send them we send them our information, and they take care of everything else. And that I think would be a big if once we find out whether the rollover happens. Going forward about the sort of the format of the meetings and the approach, I think again that's beyond the scope of just youth and outreach, other than in the outreach aspect, which is I think it is a balance between the quality of the engagement when you have people in person, which I'm not going to argue with it. It is absolutely the case. Or the quantity, in that there are a lot of people who are never going to come sit down with us for 2 or 3 hours on a Monday night. And I think that we have the opportunities to bring more people in, um, and maybe just move more efficiently in our meetings if we do them virtually. I could see it operating either way. Personally, it would make it easier for me in some ways, although again, I would concede that we lose something in quality, but especially now when we're talking about not being able to do events or NPGs, it's like, having audio and food in lieu of giving money to San Pedro Art Association or to a school. I think, it's like we're not just here to redirect funds, but that is something tangible that we can do. And the meetings in some respects, and honestly, if you look at the last hour of a lot of meetings, it is just for us, and it is supposed to be for us to meet. But we have to, in this case, we really have to measure, like with dollars and cents, how much we can deliver. And so I think it's worth the way Vic has put it together. I think is very effective. And the reality is, like, a lot of people in their households are having to make these same sorts of decisions as to what's the most critical and what's the most effective. And so we're just having to do it on this other scale.
Yeah, I really think that the San Pedro Today thing makes kind of sense when you think about it. That would be interesting to see how that can be fleshed
And it
out.
doesn't have to be, and that's the other thing, is like any particular month we decide we want to put something out, and if we happen to have a grand or two, we can do it, and it doesn't take the big run up that it takes for the advocate as well.
Right.
Plus,
Vic?
plus you're gonna have 1,000.
Just
70 units
to
down.
be sure I understood what you said, Melanie, about the mailroom cost for badges and stuff like that. It would be for
Not mailroom, but it's the business.
the
It's
business,
it's the
the business office supplies,
yes.
the $500.
Yes.
Okay, that is not just the paper.
No, that's not the paper and stuff. That's paper's already been purchased and all of that.
Okay.
Room and all of that.
Okay, well then I need to change my spreadsheet. That's why I
Yeah.
wanted to ask about that. Okay, so
And
I added that now.
Spreadsheet for the meeting should include the 750 already in person, because there's no changing that. That has
It already does.
Okay.
The
So-
spreadsheet was there. But
we can get rid of the food and we can get rid of audio.
no, the only thing I'm asking about right now is the line item on the spreadsheet that was business office supplies. That is more than just paper.
Right.
Okay. The way that it was worded on the other budget, it said paper. So I'm changing that to not say that. On one you sent me earlier. As far as the
Office supplies.
paper for mailroom. So
okay.
if that is not just the paper, then
I'll change that. It should have said and paper.
okay, then I added it for. I'm just calling it business office supplies for mailroom. So I added it in the virtual column too, as for my spreadsheet. Now, as far as part of what Chris was talking about and what you were talking about, it's basically a trade-off as to how much money do you want to spend on being able to have it in person, and is it worth doing that, and then not having money left over to do other things like NPGs and
Right.
holiday parade and all that other stuff. Things we want to do for the community, out in the community. As far as attendance goes, we have had, I would say, a high of 10 non-board stakeholders at our in-person meetings. I would say it's generally from about 5 or 6 to 10. And that is not including, and I'm talking true, like what I would say true stakeholders. That is not including the elected reps, LAPD, any of those, because they're there to give their presentation and they leave, generally. I'm talking about people who generally are sitting there the whole time. So we're not getting that much attendance for that kind of thing. So in my opinion, we would get more if we had a regular schedule of whatever schedule that is, whether it's alternating or whatever, to have some of the meetings be Zoom, because I have the data from when we were Zoom all the time. And after we went back to in-person all the time, and it's a big drop from virtual to Zoom, or I mean virtual to in-person. So it boils down to what's the trade-off we're willing to do with in-person and using up more money and not having as much left for other things, and having more meetings. I'm not saying 100%, but I'm more meetings virtually to free up money to do those other things.
Right.
And that's what it boils down to. And this is exactly, Chris said it needs to go to the board. And that's exactly why I wanted to have
Exactly.
special meeting with the board instead of going here first, because it's more than just two committees.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't agree with Ray that it should come here first. I thought, but it is.
Ray wanted it flushed out here because he doesn't want it going on and on at the board meeting. He wants
But it's going to go on and on.
Condensed down.
I think it would have to, I mean, we're going to, because
got to be condensed down and simplified and just direct at the board meeting.
At least in presentation.
So are we going to go through this meeting and pick line items that are on the holiday parade and stuff and say, okay, we'd like to do this, we'd like to do that. So we're going to have to.
It's already budgeted, and so is Candy Cane Lane.
Yeah.
Right. But when we're looking at how much we have left after that,
but it's
are we gonna change anything now? Or let me finish this question. Are we gonna look at that stuff now, or are we going to wait until we know whether we get the rollover, and if so, how much, and then come back and go through it in more detail?
The Candy Cane Lane and Holiday Parade are in stone. We are doing them. They're already budgeted in the budget.
But that budget can be changed.
That is already budgeted. We have already decided those are the things that we are doing that we do every year.
But that budget can be changed based on what we get.
Going forward, what has been decided for the budget is anything extra beyond that, NPGs, tree lighting ceremony, newsletter, anything else added upon.
But when people see the money that is not going to be there, they may change their mind and say, well, maybe we don't want to do these things that we've already budgeted for. That's the point of going to the whole board in a special meeting, so we can hash that out.
We aren't doing a special meeting. Ray wants us to condense this down and present it to the board.
I understand that, but I disagree, and I still think it needs to, because it's going to go on and on at a meeting. So we're going to have a very, very sparse meeting for anything other than this item when we do it at a board meeting.
John, you have your hand up for a while.
Okay, okay, look, I like the idea, and you know how I feel about virtual meetings. I would quit if the whole thing was on virtual. And I know you guys don't care, and I don't care either. I got other things to do with my life. So, but if we do this 50-50, like you said, a month here, a month, so that cuts the food, this cost, that cuts in half. Now, Candy Cane Lane and the parade, we've been doing that since day one. If we cut Candy Cane Lane out and stuff like that,
that's in our area.
That's our area. That belongs with us. Now, doing the virtual meetings and doing, going back and forth, month here, month not, month here, month not. Okay. That's a good chunk of money cut. Okay. The Christmas tree lighting, that started a couple of years ago. And, first at Peck Park, then last year it was over at the, at the waterfront. Now, what did we end up paying for that, Mel?
For what, the tree lighting?
Yeah,
$1,000.
we gave them 1,000 so we could have a booth. Yeah. Well, maybe, you know, maybe we cut it in half. Tell them we could only give them, you know, they're gonna have to understand. And Tim McCosker knows it because he's on the council of budgets over there, and he knows we've been cut down. And we just give him 500, you know. Uh that's how I look at it. Look, we're short, they don't have money. Okay, so if grants are cut out, the newsletter, like Chris, we talked about this in the youth and outreach. If Josh is willing to give us a deal, a 2-page spread is to me on, you know, San Pedro today way better than to do the newsletter, because some 90,000 people in San Pedro get that
Yeah.
that magazine. And the other thing, I wanted to talk to Josh too. Do you remember, Mel? You remember how we used to have where they had from the month from the day, let's say August, from August 1st to the 30th, how they would have that one section that had a couple of pages that tells you what's going on the second.
Yeah,
you
they
know,
had the calendar of events and
yeah,
stuff like
so
that.
that
our
can go back in there for us. You know, Northwest meeting is second Monday of, you know, that we're doing this, and then they could say, look, Northwest Council will be here at Candy Cane Lane, you know, or the tree lighting, you know, whatever, you know, the parade. But that thing used to always be pretty good. People would see it because a lot of people saw it. But
Yeah.
I know what Ray says about the newsletter, but like I said, if we get the 2 pages and it's only a couple of thousand, and that's taking care of the
Right.
mail and everything, all these people getting it in their houses, I think it's better. We're better off.
Okay, Kane has his hand up. Let's go to him.
Hey everybody. I know there's a lot of work and passion that has gone into this effort. If we're gonna bring it back to come from special committee or special meeting, not committee, special meeting that we propose 2 budgets. One if we get the money, the rollover, and one if we don't. And I think everything will kind of should shape appropriately, because there's a lot of discussion on, you know, we're obviously passionate about the newsletter. I know we have a mature demographic in San Pedro, but again, coming back to the reality is that we just we don't have enough money to do it exactly how we want. So I think the best interest in going to our general board is that we make it simple for them to make a decision versus the deliberation going back and forth.
Right. I appreciate what you're saying, Kane, right now, but the problem is the $25,000 budget that we have right now. This is what we're dealing with, and what we have to deal with as far as how we're going forward, because that money for the rollover we aren't going to see until probably the end of the year. And so we have to budget our budget. And what we'll do is revisit it once we receive that money, what we're going to do with that money going forward after we get it.
Well,
Too
yeah.
complicated right
Do
now
do you do
with it.
you, sorry, you had mentioned, is it possible that we don't get it? Like they say we're gonna get it and we don't get it? Like somebody's gonna play with the money?
It's possible if the mayor just decides to say, oh, the budget's just too messed up and we need, because if they have 99 neighborhood councils have rollover money up to $10,000, and they allowed this year originally for neighborhood councils to go beyond the 10,000 is what they said originally. And so some may have more, but then they walked it back and said only 10,000 they were going to allow. And they've been squirrely on this quite a bit. So my thought process is I'm not trusting them too much right now until I see what we get as a letter saying that you have X amount of dollars in rollover and that you need to take it to your board and redo a budget. When we receive that, then that means we're getting the money.
Right. And has this something like this happened before in the city of
Yes,
Los Angeles?
last year.
Okay, then. So if it's plausible, then I would recommend that we don't bank on it and we just move we present that so that
Yeah,
the
that's why I'm saying we just focus on the 25,000 for right now and just figure out what we're gonna do to how we're gonna do this. If we're gonna be conservative and go to some Zoom meetings to try and save some of our money,
Mhm.
or if we're going to just keep it in person and just accept it the way it is.
I yeah, I'm new to both conversations. Well, not youth and outreach, of course, but especially the other committee that I'm going to be joining soon. And so yeah,
There's different sides on Zoom. I like it in person. I like it on Zoom too. My biggest concern with Zoom is what I saw honestly during Zoom when we were on Zoom during COVID is you had the people like this laying down in their bed or whatever during a meeting, or you had the person snoring, or you had the person stuffing their face online rather than, or some people not even on camera. And if we're gonna go to Zoom, then strict protocols need to be put into place, requirements for every board member, the way they're supposed to act while they're on Zoom. So,
well, that's a totally different thing. I mean,
yeah,
that's like, and again, I don't want to go too far off the reservation here, but that's like saying people have to come to Pet Park in a certain uniform. And so,
what happened to Chris? He's over in,
yeah, he's there,
you
but
go.
that
I think he's on his phone.
but
Oh,
the key is engagement, and it feels good to get the newsletter in your mailbox. I have mine, posted on my refrigerator, so I'm very grateful to, it has my face in it, right? So, but when it comes to, yeah, just some of the conversation that we're having, I think it would be best that we just, if we
But
put a good, better, and best for not receiving the carryover, and we move forward. And I
yeah,
think that'd be best.
like what you said, when we were doing Zooms, look, either you're going to sit at at like this, talk to us and everything else, but laying down, having the lights dim, having this, we sometimes we don't even know if they're there, or you know, they uh they do one of these, okay, and then you're looking at that the whole time, almost 3/4 of the way, and that's wrong. If people are in that audience when they're on the attendees, the people are there. Do you think they want to see a camera and my name?
Oh,
No.
whoa.
People want to see us. They're there. They want to see our face. They want to see our expressions, what we're doing.
Oh,
And
are you talking about the attendees, or are you talking about the actual people that are on the
no,
board?
I'm talking about attendees that they want to see us. And then I'm talking about us. We should be just like we are right now, how we're all sitting here talking, okay? And attention to this. Okay,
Yeah,
there's guys that lay down, and that's
that
gotta
are on the that are on the board.
that
yeah.
are on the board. Yes, we've always had at least 3 or 4 people that this is not a relaxation. We're here to
So
you know.
that's a different conversation, and
Well, that's why she's saying there's got to be some rules. If we do the virtual meetings, there's got to be rules. Everybody has to you know be lit
yeah,
enough. We can see each other, and
be
you know
respectful. Be respectful.
yes.
Just
Okay.
respectful and some decorum.
Let's let Vic chime in here. He's got his hand up.
Thanks, Vic.
Um, as John said, everybody knows how he feels about Zoom. Well, everybody knows how I feel about Zoom too, and I'm just the opposite. I would have no problem being 100% Zoom, but I also know that that's not going to happen. And that's what I said during the conversation, as I don't, the columns that I had on my spreadsheet starting out as 100%, one or the other, but we can change the percentages and see the cost differences based on that. So I know it's not going to be 100% Zoom as much as I would like it. The other, another thing is, as far as the falling asleep and stuff like that, that's a personal problem. That's not a Zoom problem. As
Right.
far as the rules and stuff, yes, we do need those. One thing that I would, one way that I thought of it is, if you turn off your camera, it's as if you walked out of the room and you weren't there. So when you're at the meeting, for board members, the camera should be on all the time. And if you turn yours off, then it's like you left the Peck Park Auditorium and you weren't at the meeting. And that, enforcing that is another issue, but that is the type of thing I'd like to see to, for the Zoom meetings, to keep people from doing stuff like that. But as far as falling asleep and stuff like that, that's a personal problem. And whatever meeting that we end up talking about this budget at should, in my opinion, be a virtual meeting, so I can pull up the spreadsheet and we can do the real-time trade-offs with the money, because we won't have a way to do that on the screen if the equipment isn't there. And also, I think, since if everybody here is still okay with the budget as it currently stands, I think I disagree that we should have a good, better, best, or something like that. I think we need to wait until we find out the status of the rollover and then revisit this. And I still say as a special meeting, but if not, at least at a board meeting, after we know whether we have the rollover and how much that'll be. Not try to come up with something now and say, well, if we get the rollover, we do this. If we don't, we do this. I think if we're okay with the current budget, we just stay the way it is until we know the status of the rollover. Because otherwise, we're just going to be going through all these gyrations of what if and what if and what if. And
Right.
we've done enough of that at this point, I think, where it's time to just wait for the rollover one way or the other.
Yeah, I agree. I totally
Yeah.
agree. I think right now, until we get through, and I'm hoping that we get a letter in September from the city clerk's office. That's when I was just looking online, and that's when we got the letter last year, was in September.
It was right after the
The
board
second
meeting.
week, it was the second week of September.
Yeah, we got it right after the board meeting, that letter
And
came
then
out.
October is when we approved the new budget with the rollover money.
So I agree. We just leave it. I'm the same way. We just leave it like it is. Then once we have the rollover, now we could discuss further into.
Right.
And like I said, like Vic said, if we do a half and half, I'm agreeable to that too, because it at least it puts some more money into our budget.
Well,
You
I mean,
And
everything we do is some form of compromise anyway. And I think if we start out knowing, like, we're not bargaining against one another. So I think if we start out knowing that there will be compromise, we'll just be more comfortable when we finally decide exactly what that is.
Right.
And maybe this is something we could agendize, at least in part, for the retreat, because it is mostly internal. Like, people are going to be talking about the philosophy of the system and the whole thing. But I don't think it's something we should. Well, we're not going to be able to decide it quickly, even if we wanted to. But I think that, not going too far upstream, trying to solve for everything before we know, and then just understanding that we're going to have to hear from basically every single board member and many members of the audience anyway. So we might as well just anticipate that, and just, let it be that way.
And just one quick addition to my recommendation of having the detailed discussion later as a virtual meeting. Remember, we did vote and approve to have 2, I believe it was, virtual meetings this year. So that could be one of them.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, honestly, it would be good to be able to test the theory outside of the confines of, the COVID restrictions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we also have to do it we have to make it on a regular basis to really get a true,
Hmm.
you know, a true gauge, because if we just have, you know, like a one-time virtual meeting and then
That's true.
the rest are in person,
Right.
Right.
then we're not going to really get a true reading on, you know, how many people would show up virtually versus not, because if they know it's just a one-time thing or a two-time thing, then
Right.
you
It's
know,
a bad sample.
yeah, right.
But how, question, so if we did 6 out of the 12 months virtual, how would we do that? Because how would you select which months we were doing virtual and which ones we weren't?
I
And make sure that it wasn't confusing to the stakeholders.
Well, I see two ways. One is if we have somebody present, and this wouldn't necessarily be a regular schedule, but if we have somebody presenting, then it would be good to do it virtually so we can record the presentation and the question and answers and stuff like that. That's one way. The other way would be, and this would be easier on the stakeholders, every other meeting we alternate, because then they'll know that it's going to go in person, virtual, in person, virtual. It's not going to be 2 in-persons, 3 virtuals,
No.
another in person and stuff like that.
Screws things up,
It'll be a regular alternating schedule where people can know for sure it's going to go back and forth.
right.
Those are the two ideas that I can think of.
Vic, you could do you can, you know how you always lay out the 6 month when we're doing the virtual, we were doing it
Yeah.
6 month increments, remember?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I
if
can do it
you
longer than that, but I just typically do it in
No.
6-month intervals.
Right. But what we can do though, is you could, you know, like you said, if you alternate, so you show, January, gotta hang on, January, March, June, you can do that is in person. And then February, April, July, you know what I'm saying? You put out those 6 months.
The Zoom invitations would just go every other month. It wouldn't be the Zoom invitations would not say anything about the in-person meetings. It would just be every other month would be virtual. And then we just have to figure out where you know, since we typically do the seating of the board in July, that would probably be better to be the in-person one, and then we alternate around that.
Right. Right. That's what I'm saying. So you could put out so the people know ahead of time, you know,
Yeah, we'd have to, I mean, but we can't do that with the Zoom invitation. We'd have to figure out how to do that as far as the stakeholders go. We can't do it with the Zoom invitations. We'd have to figure out what the best way is to let stakeholders know.
Well, can we put it on our website?
Yeah, we can put it on the website. We can
something-
put it, we mention it at a meeting. We can put it on the website. We can put it in email blast. I mean, there are ways of doing it,
Yeah.
but the Zoom invitation is not that way.
Right. But we can make up, like, we can have a flyer. I can put them on the table when we're
Yeah.
at the meeting.
We
And
could
they
have
say,
a
"These are
specific
our-"
flyer just for
Right,
the schedule.
this side and this
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
Do something,
do that.
you know, that there's a lot of things we can do to let them know. And
Right.
you know, and that'll help, you know. But like I said, whatever we're doing now, we do it now. And like you said, once we know that letter is there and said, hey, she comes back in September or October, we got a letter. Okay. Now we come back and have another meeting and talk about what the add-on, you know.
So to circle back here then, before we complete the meeting. So what we're gonna do is wait until we receive the letter for the rollover meeting.
Right.
And then what we'll do is then maybe circle back and have another special meeting once we receive the rollover to discuss next steps.
Still.
Right?
Do we have to have, are we gonna vote on something?
No, we aren't voting on anything.
Okay.
We're just.
Yeah, I think we decided we're going to leave things as they stand until we find out about the rollover.
Okay, so leave things as is. until rollover money confirmed.
And if we're gonna have another special meeting, I'm gonna say it again, it needs to be the entire board so we can get this over with all at the same time.
I tend to agree. Like that long, painful conversation has to happen. Just for honestly, just for transparency, but just to make sure everybody is heard, or at least has a chance to speak. Because
So just to do a special meeting for the board on this one subject, maybe?
Yes.
Well, and of course, I think the public should probably have a chance to
Right.
obviously.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a Brown active meeting. It'll be a public meeting, but
Right.
it needs to
Special
be with
board
the
meeting
entire
on this
board, because no matter whether we do this as part of a regular one or a special one, and yes, Melanie, just this topic, it is going to take a long time to get through, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, no, it took us a while to get through this one. So
Yeah,
Okay, so
and we're just 5 people.
Okay. So what we'll do, I've got my notes here, what we're gonna do. And that way we can just lock it in, and that's what we're gonna do. Once I get the email that says what our rollover amount is, then we can call a special board meeting to discuss what we're gonna do with the budget going forward.
And it
Yeah.
should be, and again, it should be virtual for this one.
Hey,
So
real
I can
quick,
pull up the spreadsheet and we can
Special board,
and we can really go through in detail with the what ifs and all that.
already,
hey, real quick, when is the Congress of Neighborhood Council
the 27th
27th, yeah,
of what?
September.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if
Alright.
everybody's good, I think we're good. And
Yeah. Well, at least we know where we are.
and we know where we're at. We're all on the same page, it sounds like now.
That's more appropriate, Chris. We know where we are.
We know where we
Yeah, but
are. We know
Chris,
we're on the
do-
same page pretty much now. I
Chris,
think
do you
we've
know
got
where
it all kinda-
you're at, Chris?
I'm in Northwest San Pedro.
Yeah, but
What
I
are you
can see your
doing out your
guitars.
yard?
I can see your guitars hanging and everything.
Are
Yeah,
you
there's
Okay,
yard?
are we done with the meeting so I can stop the recording?
Yes,
yeah.
already.
Okay, recording stopped at 7:35 p.m.
Are you